We're Batman at 89. Hello and welcome once again to Batminute 89, the show that cackles and laughs its way through Tim Burton's Batman 1 minute at a time. I am one of your hosts, John Parker.
And I am the other host, Niall McGowan. I was tempted to just leave a recording of myself in a small bag for this episode, but then I figured, I might as well come in and just do it anyway.
It's the same effect either way, so that would have been fine. I shouldn't have insulted my co-host. That was a joke. But yes.
Oh, you want to take it outside, Parker? Oh, come on, let's go. Let's go do it right now, man.
Maybe after the episode. We are joined today by a very special guest.
My name is Suzen Tekla Kruglnska, and I host the Shining 237 podcast, another part of the Movies by Minute universe, except I don't do it every minute of the movie. I do every 2 minutes and 37 seconds of the movie. So
that is genius, because not only does it make sense, but you're done considerably faster.
Yeah, I do it once a week too, so it's a little more stretched out. But yeah, it's 2 minutes. It's a good chunk of time. It's a nice chunk of time.
It's not that there's not like loads to talk about with The Shining in every scene, but it's like if you were doing it minute by minute, it would be like, here's a corridor, and a minute later it's the same shot of that corridor.
Well, that's like me and Niall are big fans of David Lynch, but there's no way we could do a David Lynch movie minute by minute. I don't think that would be a nightmare. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. No, it's the action movies are obviously the perfect vehicle, where you have just every second. But The Shining for 2 minutes and 37 seconds, it works really well. Like it's a slow moving movie, but of course there's so much going on, and there's so much history, and there's so many crazy stories about the filming, and so it's there's plenty to do. Yeah.
Oh, well, make sure to check that out, everyone. And this episode of Batman 89 is minute 115. And the minute starts with Batman and Vicky dangling all over the place. And it ends with another press conference. Again.
Hey.
How many press conferences can you have in one damn movie?
Well, it's a lot going on in the city, so it makes total sense. I mean, like, what else has the mayor got to do? Apparently, the police commissioners are not doing their jobs. They got to just constantly doing press conferences.
And it kind of substitutes for, like, narration. Like, in Kubrick movies, you have either narration or you have, like, title cards that kind of move the movie along. And this is, like, the vehicle for Batman is, like, press conference. Little pop-up press conferences to guide you through the movie.
They've got two. They've got the press conference, and they only do it a couple of times in this, the newspaper headline.
Yes, right. That's another vehicle. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the old spinning, I think we touched on it. I think it was Orson Welles. I think it's Citizen Kane came up with the whole spinning newspaper trick, but it's a thing that's lasted. Like, if Orson Welles, if he copyrighted that idea, he would have made a fortune. Although it was not as if he didn't. Well, I suppose he didn't. He did end up having to do like adverts for wine and Bird's Eye Peas. So I guess he didn't have much money towards the end.
He did it.
That wine ad is one of the greatest things in the world.
Oh, it's fantastic. The Paul Masson, oh, the French champagne is terrific stuff.
If you haven't seen that, everyone, please even pause the podcast now. Just go and watch that. It's genius.
Yeah.
It's just like Orson Welles, Paul Masson, I believe it would be in YouTube. That's what you want to look for. But yeah, we got a resolution here, though, to like the little mini cliffhanger we had last minute where the grappling hook was scurrying to find purchase, and we see at the beginning of this minute, it clung on to something. So they're fine. They're fine.
Yeah, but as Pete Mummert brought up the other day, wouldn't this quick stop pretty much injure them? Because it's not like there's a lot of slack on that grappling hook.
And actually, in observing the last minute again, I did notice there was a brief shot of Batman attaching the grappling hook to his belt. So that would be all crotch and lower back, like, damage of that sudden stop. I imagine he's probably not doing too well after that.
He's ripped in half.
And through the whole movie, Vicky Vale's screaming, "Ah!" That really annoying, "Ah!" And here she's just like, "Ooh." That was like the only sound she makes is, "Ooh." Like, yeah.
This is the one time the scream would be perfect.
Right, that would actually make sense.
I don't mind her screaming a lot. It seems to work in this movie, unlike, say, Willie Scott, Temple of Doom. that works to a point, but after about 30 minutes, you're like, oh my God.
I remember when I first saw this movie, in the theaters when I was young, like just thinking how annoyed I was with her constant scream. Like it just, for some reason, it just goes through my head like a rusty drill. It just doesn't. This and the other scream that always stands out for me is Aliens, the second Alien, Carrie Henn, the little girl who's brilliant in that movie. But that scream she does, it just ruins the movie for me because it's just like, it's a whistle scream, and it just.
Yeah, it puts me off. I know she's good, but that scream alone just makes you think, is she? It makes me question the rest of the movie.
You feel bad for like the actresses like having to do these as well, because like they're having to literally emit the screen every couple of minutes for like hours, probably like on set. It's like, all right, build yourself up and like again, like over and over and over.
I'm sure most of these screams are done post production. I'm guessing, especially obviously anything in an action, in the action scenes, it's all post production. But so that means the director's sitting there. Like they're developing what's the best scream. You can just picture them kind of figuring out what kind of scream they want and having her do it over and over again. I don't know. Anyway, I like Vicky Vale. I really like the character. I like Kim Basinger's, however you pronounce her name, is great. Has anybody settled the Basinger debate?
We did. We looked it up, and I think we were both wrong with how we were saying it, weren't we?
Yeah. Apparently, it's Basinger.
Basinger.
The word bay and then the word singer. You just put them together. Basinger. Like the first couple episodes is me and John just going like, oh, we should like, what is it anyway? And then we had to settle on Michael Goff as well, because it was like, was it Michael Gauche? What? And then apparently it's specifically says on his IMDb, it's Michael Goff pronounced like cough. So we're like, hey, there you go.
Oh, that's handy that we get that.
Well, I actually, Kubrick is pronounced either Kubrick or Kubrick. So I actually wrote to his daughter because I was like, nobody knows. I mean, this is clearly, some of the greatest movie authorities were saying it in different ways. So I actually wrote to Vivian on Twitter, and I'm like, how do you pronounce your name? So I got the definitive. I thought that was.
Oh, what was the answer? Because I say Kubrick.
It's Kubrick. Yeah, it's Ku.
Yes.
Ku like a dove. Kubrick. Yeah.
Yes, clearly I knew that all along, and I was special and in the know.
Yes.
But I love the shot we get next, though, of them. They're dangling there, and we get the spotlights coming up and shining on them as they're hanging by the cathedral. I thought that was a really good visual, and it was a bit kind of it was evoking like old horror movies and even the old Batman show, because they would do spotlights a lot of the time, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
But without being too campy in this, obviously.
No, the environment is gorgeous. And that long shot of them swinging in front of the cathedral is really, very impressive looking. It looks, pretty. It looks legit, and it's kind of beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when you get the close up of them as well, swinging there, like I couldn't help but think of Spider-Man, where they do the kiss upside down. I thought, even though I've seen this 100 times. I thought, Batman, he's gonna kiss her. He's gonna kiss her right now, and it'll be beautiful and romantic. Nope, I actually like that they didn't do that. It's such an obvious choice to do.
Yeah, totally. I will note as well that Kim Basinger in interviews noted that apparently in order to get the correct sheen on Michael Keaton's bat suit, they'd have to spray him every once in a while with this sort of matte paint. And apparently it used to just get all over her all the time, like over her and Michael Keaton. So imagine shooting this. Like, that dress is probably in pretty bad condition as soon as she stepped away from this. It's like, literally just might as well just spilt the whole thing of shoe polish over the top of it, pretty much.
Yeah.
So there's no stealing the clothes after the movie's wrapped.
No, not as far as I'm aware of, anyway. But yeah, the thing is, though, because they had the whole thing of, how are they going to get down from the top of the church tower? At this point, they're dangling here, and the spotlights are on them and everything. It's kind of like, how are they going to get down from here? Like, what are they going to do now?
That's a good question. Can he reel the thing back up? Can he go all the way back up to the roof?
I guess maybe slowly inches his way up there. I guess they've got time because the doorway is still blocked by the bell, so it's not as if the cops are going to be coming up. But then, even how do they get out of the bell tower? Like, what do they do then? Does he have to His bat plane's ruined. Well, how did he get out of this?
It seems like Batman has endless ropes with grappling hooks in his costume. Like, it just seems like, remember in earlier, he had done that double scene, like in the museum, he had done where he hit one side of the wall, hit the other side of the wall, and then had one going down the middle so they could just go zoom.
Yes.
And, it just seems like he has infinite, almost in a Spider-Man-like way, grappling hooks.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling there's going to be some casting of rope and latching onto something and pulling themselves in. That's how I picture it.
Well, what makes no sense about that, but I love it at the same time, is where the hell are all these ropes?
Right.
They're not in that belt, because that belt is small. Like, where are they going?
It seems to all have it. It's all behind his back too. Because I remember when one of the first times he whips out the grappling hook when he's rescuing Vicky, you see it slides out on like a little automated thing on his belt. So apparently everything's behind his back. It's on the small of his back is where he's hiding everything.
Right. If you actually raveled up all of the ropes that he's cast, or I guess they're like wires, but if you actually raveled them all up, you'd have these giant spools of rope.
Yeah.
And so it's laws of physics here are not quite applying.
But that's what I love about Batman, because you just know, well, he somehow got the technology. That's the only explanation. Yeah, moving on. Like they don't try, especially in these ones, they don't really try and explain it too much. Just deal with it.
But we'll be remiss as well if we didn't mention that one of the film's most notorious deleted scenes should occur right now as well.
Yes.
It's one that leaves even more questions up because it was supposed to cut, and this is a scene that's in the comic book adaptation. There's shots of them doing it on set. Like this was a scene that was filmed and then cut. Somehow Batman and Vicky got off the top of somehow they got out of this dangling position anyway. And then the police run over to find that Batman has fallen. And they're like, oh, it's Batman. Here they go. We've got him. And there's like a figure on the floor with a cloak over it. Do a whole business let's see who this guy really is. And in the comics, it's actually Vicky's there who has a camera ready. And then it's revealed that underneath Batman's cape is Alexander Knox. Which
What?
is... What? What? Yeah, apparently they went out of their way to go get Knox's corpse he's not dead. Unconscious body, drag it over to the cathedral, and then leave Batman's cowl on it to frame him for some reason. And as Knox just plays it cool, wakes up and says, "Can I still make the late edition?"
Jeez.
I kind of like that though.
Well, I'm assuming the scene was cut, because it makes absolutely no sense. So,
yeah.
But we could have got more seconds of Robert Wool, but tragically that was not to be.
Oh, the more Robert Wool, the better for me. He's so cool in this movie.
Yeah, he's a little superfluous, but he's very entertaining. Yeah, I guess I'm happy he's there. I don't remember. It's funny. I don't remember now what just happened to him. How did he go unconscious? What was the last thing that happened? He's not actually dead, right?
He was run over and left in a pile of garbage by Vicky Vale during the parade.
That's right. He was in the garbage. That's right. Okay, I remember.
Is that a metaphor for finally getting rid of him and his unwanted advances?
Yeah. It's like her hit putting pedal to the metal and be like, this is forbidden and inappropriate in the workplace. Just zooming down the streets.
Just annoying. No, it was very standard. I mean, I was college age when this came out. I'm a little older than you guys, and I can tell you that was not, nobody batted an eye at that. That would have been standard movie guy behavior, and in real life, pretty much standard guy behavior. This is how it's always been.
Yep. Sadly, still happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we get to fade into a very memorable scene now. Like, we find out what happened to Joker's body. And,
yes.
we covered that this cathedral was 800 feet. And somehow he is perfectly intact at the bottom. The pavement has sustained more damage than he has. Right. Which is absolutely insane. There's no way that body would be that intact.
I expected his body parts to be blown all over.
No,
the place.
it would take them like 48 hours to pick up all the pieces in real life. It would be like a crew with vacuums. I mean, it would. Yeah, this is, and scrubbers and hoses and yeah. No, there's no way. There's no way.
Oh, that would actually be a really good ending, because there could always be the implication that maybe the Joker didn't die. Maybe this is a ruse. Well, we can't actually find enough of him to identify him.
Although it reminded me that either of you seen In Bruges, the Colin Farrell, the Ray Fiennes movie?
I thought I was the only person in the world who hadn't seen that movie, so I'm so glad that you said that first. I was feeling ashamed, like, oh no, I can't speak up.
Well, not to get into any spoilers, because it is very good and I recommend you watch it. But there is a scene of a character who jumps off the top of a church tower, and you actually see him at the bottom, and it's just his upper half, because his entire bottom half is completely smashed all over everywhere, and he's actually still alive. Because people come up and go,
no,
oh my God,
that's horrible.
But he's probably just wide-eyed, just like really just like God. Completely just staring into space, his body in complete shock, And that's what you expect. Like, yeah, there would be.
I mean, you can't be too grisly in this movie. I know it's a Tim Burton movie, and he might be into his horror and things, but he doesn't want to go that far.
Yeah, no, this is what he had to do, because it's a kids movie too. I mean, it's a little, it's somewhat, you're going to have a certain amount of kids audience. You don't want this to be rated R, but I mean, just having a little dab of blood in the corner of his chin, that's it's a little, he could have made it a little bloodier, but yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, mostly I would say this movie gets the right balance between being a kids' movie and being something, for adults, like something that everyone can enjoy. The darkness is the right level.
Right. No. I mean, it was definitely for adults, but it was, he knew this was also going to be something that, you're going to want to show your kids. It's part of the audience. It's a segment, definitely a segment of the audience. But yeah, it did remind me of... I was thinking about, it made me think about that guy who jumped from the Eiffel Tower, who in a Batman-like way.
Oh, yeah.
Franz Reichelt. In 1912, he was a guy who was obsessed with parachutes, and he was the first, or one of the first people to imagine a wingsuit, which of course now people are doing. They're jumping off of cliffs with wingsuits, but he made a wingsuit. It was very Batman-like, and he was certain it was going to work, and he convinced the police to give him permission to go up the Eiffel Tower to jump off, but he told them he was going to be throwing dummies off. And he he told all of his friends, I'm just throwing dummies off. And then when they got there at the last minute, he's like, I'm doing this, and they were like, no. Everybody begged him not to do it. And this is exactly what happened to him. There's photos of his body, but he's covered in the flight suit. You can't really see, the damage. And he landed on soil, so it was kind of frozen soil, but it was still obviously more of a softer impact than this. He made a 5.9 inch impact hole in the ground. Whoa. I looked this up. I was just thinking about him, and I thought, I knew I knew someone had measured it, so I was just curious. But yeah, 5.
Oh, that's amazing. I'd completely forgotten about that story.
That's like a really morbid hole you decided to go into.
Wait, one more thing as far as suicides like this, or this isn't a suicide, but there's also a gorgeous photo of a woman who had jumped to her death, and she had hit the hood of a car. And it's sort of that, obviously also reminded me of this. It's just absolutely. Her name was Evelyn McHale. She died in 1947. She was 23 years old. The photographer was Robert Wiles. And anyway, I'm sure a lot of people know what I'm talking about, but if not, look it up on. It's not gruesome. It's just a gorgeous photo, a very sad photo. But they also just reminded me of this.
No, it's intriguing because, as you say, it's not gruesome at all. So if you're listening, don't worry, look it up. It's fine. It's not gross. But that's what caught me it took me aback when I saw it because I thought this can't be a real photo. She just looks like it's posing for like a movie or like a model shoot or something. But it was real when I looked into it. Yeah.
So
it's also because we do also see that the gargoyle that was attached to the Joker is slightly to the side here. I do find there's something funny, and like imagine like the police looking up and like and just seeing hurtling towards them a gargoyle and the Joker, and just been like, what is that? Jesus Christ, move! And apparently
they did just have a bell thrown at them.
Yeah, and then apparently the earth literally shattering as he hits. And him being fine. Well, not fine. He's dead, obviously. But
what are you talking about, dead? He's laughing, Niall. You can hear him laughing. He's alive.
It's a brilliant shot because it's got the twisty pull-in and then the laughing is just great. I mean, that's really brilliant.
I always found this genuinely very, very creepy when I was a kid because it is like it's that sort of twinkly. It's the reprise. It's Beautiful Dreamer again. It's just played a lot slower, which has sort of become a kind of weird leitmotif for the Joker in some ways. Like it's appeared with him several times. And going down and hearing this laughing and just seeing he looks kind of weirdly at peace as well. And he's still, of course, classically got the big frozen grin on his face, which is...
but he can't help that.
Yeah, totally. But that's one of the things that's a bit of a trope with the Joker death, because like it has... most famously before this would have been The Dark Knight Returns, when he dies, and that is when Batman snaps his neck, but he's actually still alive, and then the Joker decides to like twist his head further so he'll actually kill himself, but knowing that people will blame Batman for him, and that's his kind of final act of revenge. And Batman's inner monologues commenting on the fact that he's still got the big smile, just glaring at him with this evil grin. But this is the thing that dates all the way back to the Joker's alleged death and his first, it's actually in Batman #1, it says the Joker's second appearance in that issue. Yeah, is intended to be killed in that, and a panels where Batman actually stabs him through the heart, which is not a very Batman thing to do by the modern standards. But the Joker's swinging a knife at Batman, and Batman says to him, "Not so fast with the cutlery, friend." The Joker retorts, "I'll kill you yet." And Batman says, "Mind if I try to stop you?" And then he throws him into a wall from which the Joker manages, like his arm goes and he stabs himself through the heart. And then Batman and Robin, because at that point, Robin had been introduced. And then Robin notes, like, "Look, still grinning in death." And Batman says, "Yes. And then the flesh is gone. The grinning skull will still carry the sign of the Joker into eternity," which is really weirdly poetic. It's like I wish I could say something that poetic when someone's lying dead in front of me.
Yeah, usually I just go, like, "Niall, you're going to have to get ready with the buzzer." I'd be like, "Shh."
Yeah, and of course, because the original plan was that they wanted to kill the Joker off because they were worried that it might seem Batman was a bit incompetent if he kept allowing the same criminals to break out over and over again. But this decision was overruled by the editor Whitney Ellsworth, and in a hastily drawn panel indicated that the Joker was still alive. And then the Joker went on to appear in 9 of Batman's first 12 issues. So they did not double down on the whole, "Oh no, we're getting rid of him" idea. They completely fell back upon the Joker, apparently.
What Gordon does next, I am not a fan of. Because he reaches into Joker's inside jacket pocket and retrieves a small bag. Now, obviously, this is containing the laughing, chattering teeth or whatever.
Yeah.
But how does he know that? Right, because personally, if I'm a cop and all of this crazy stuff has just gone down, I'm calling the bomb squad for this mysterious bag. I'm not just grabbing it like da-da-da, casual. Yeah, it could be booby-trapped. Like, gas might spew out of it at any moment.
Yeah, totally. I will actually say that this is a thing that dates back for me a while now, because I was always confused about what the hell this thing is. Because I always thought, like, it's like a piece of, like, velvet or something, and I remember getting in a major debate one time. It might have been with former guest Gaz Flint, or it might have been with a mutual friend of me and John's, Aidan Burns, but I remember me and somebody else really getting into, like, a debate one point when I was like, "Oh yeah, it's like a weird velvet bag or something," and he's like, "No, it's a tape recorder." And I was like, "No, it's a velvet bag." He's like, "No," he takes out a tape recorder and then he presses stop. And you hear a click, and then it's like, no, it's not. And this went on for ages and ages. And at this point, we didn't have the film to hand to look at it, or even like a YouTube clip, because of the days before smartphones. And I'm here to say now, it's a goddamn bag. All right, there it is. I'm looking at it right now. It's a bag.
Finally.
Apparently, this is a thing called the laughing bag. This is actually a thing they used to sell.
Yes.
Oh.
It's a practical joke. Yeah, in the old-timey days, there would be these actual entire, stores that just sold nothing but practical jokes. And in New York City, actually famously had these novelty shops, quite a few of them. And, you'd get fake vomit. You'd get the ice with, I actually have a really cool, very old set of ice with flies in them. Like these fake ice cubes with flies in them. And it has that old-timey packaging. It's so cool. And, that was, in the days of the Depression and that sort of thing, it was very, very popular with people. So yeah, the chattering teeth and, all these, and of course, magician's tricks and, that all kind of overlapped. But yeah, there were entire shops and entire companies that did nothing but produce these crazy novelty items. And of course, in the old comic book days, you'd look in the back of the comic book and it would be all these little ads to buy all this crap, these crazy, all these. So probably that laughing bag, if you were buying one of the, I don't know, I've never seen, up close an original one of the really old classic Batman comic books, but I bet you that there's a very good chance you could see maybe an ad for a laughing bag. Certainly you'd see all these other crazy novelty items.
They'll definitely be there.
So I did find the origin of the laughing bag, and every time I say it, I keep thinking in my head, like laughing bag, my mind keeps going to like, there is a man in a smiling bag. It's just the Twin Peaks fans just piercing through too heavily. But this is actually, it's a German invention. It's called the Laufsack, which is literally translated into laugh bag. It was invented in 1968, which is actually quite surprisingly late. So I would have thought it would have been like the 40s or the 30s or thereabout.
Yeah.
Invented by a fellow called Walter Thiel, and it was the most successful of his 1,600 inventions. Originally, he came in with a parrot toy with a little tape recorder thing in it, or a little mini record player.
Oh,
and
I like that.
It was rejected, and then brought it home and put the mini record player in a sock, and then put on a new little laugh track, and it became this.
That's interesting. I haven't seen these, but when I was a kid, they definitely had the shops selling these things. Well, I mean, I don't know if they did in England, because when I was a kid, I grew up in Cyprus for a while, and that's where I would buy these things. And I was obsessed with all of these kind of stuff. But I didn't have this. I had like the old, like the what was it? It was like a jar. When you open it, all the springs pop out. And, What is it? Like a jar of peanuts or something?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the snakes pop out.
But I never got a single person to fall for any of the guys.
No.
Yeah.
It'd be like chewing gum, but when you pull it, it like makes a loud bang when you go to pull it out of the packet. And no, everyone knew.
Yeah, the little finger trap thing. But you can always tell, because it's like, it looks like it's spearmint gum, but the packet doesn't look quite right. So that's your dead giveaway. But although I would say the last the little note of like it was successful. Apparently, then Theo developed the concept by staging a laughing contest and using recording of the winner's laughter in the redesigned laugh sack. The winner, a tax inspector from Nuremberg, was offered a prize of either 1,000 marks or a 10 Finnick royalty per laugh sack sold.
Oh, take the royalty.
Oh no! Apparently, he played safe, chose the lump sum. Apparently, an estimated 120 million had been sold by 2007. And it's still in production, so he lost out right there.
Yeah, always take the royalties.
So when he first invented it, what was the mechanism that was recording? Like, what was that was playing it back? What was the mechanism?
They just say a mini record player, which is, I keep thinking like a little vinyl
yeah, that's
thing.
weird.
It's like, I don't think that would work.
Vinyl record.
I know, that's hard to picture.
Not too transportable.
Yeah, but I do this though, because I've mentioned several times throughout the show. Susan, you mightn't have heard, but like when I was a kid, I was half convinced through sheer confusion and just being a kid that the Joker was in some way like half robot, like he was a cyborg or some sort, and it was from things like him offering Vicky his hand, and all of a sudden his hand comes off, and like random things of like, oh, he's kind of walking weird.
Yeah.
He's got this buzzer hand, and how did he do that without electrocuting himself? This this here was one of the major things because one, like I was just confused. I'm like, did he record himself laughing while he was falling and then turn on the thing? Is it
Oh my god, that's a great theory. I love that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, what was it? Is it like, how did this thing get set off? Because then I was starting to think when I was a kid, like, was his whole voice a recording? Like, how is this? Why is his laugh coming from this little bag? Like, was all his laughter coming from a bag? Was everything he said pre-recorded? It didn't make any sense to me.
Okay, my new theory then. He's not really the Joker. The real Joker is controlling it all from a secret lair. This guy is brainwashed, and he's carrying this speaker, and the real Joker speaks through him.
It's not the worst theory we've had, to be fair.
Well, the comic books have done similar things in the past.
Yeah, the buzzer, the hand buzzing thing is, again, that's also a classic, gag, novelty gag. It is. It's like there's so much that's outdated in this movie, and it was already almost outdated in '89. It was already like a lot of this was for kind of old timey people to sort of understand what the references were, to what the Joker was doing. But yeah, I remember, when I saw it when it came out, thinking it was a near perfect movie because it was so impressive. When it came out, it was just it seemed almost perfect. It's now looking at it, it feels it could use a little more of a quicker a better edit, like maybe to make it some of the scenes move along a little faster, stuff like that. Needs a little bit of a modernization. But yeah, it's pretty impressive, and everybody in it is excellent. I mean, so Jack Nicholson, of course, is a shining person. I think he's absolutely perfect in this movie. I don't think he's perfect in The Shining, but I think he's really perfect in this movie.
Actually,
I'm one of those.
No, this would be relevant because I don't know. I actually really love your shows. I think it's like one of the best ones that are that's out at the moment. But I don't know if you've ever touched upon a frequent thing that we bring up, because your show maybe is a bit more intellectual than we tend to sway into. Because one of the questions we frequently bring up is, I was always under the impression that Jack Nicholson was supposed to be sexy, that he was regarded as being a sexy man. Do you think that he's sexy? Have you ever found him attractive in any regard? Or are you one of these ones? Because we've had quite a few come on and be like, oh, God, no, he's hideous.
Yeah, no, I was probably probably if I was young, if I was a generation older, I'd say Easy Rider years, maybe, like... in the 70s, in the early and mid 70s, he's kind of maybe a little sexy. I could have found him sexy, but by the time I was, I mean, certainly in this movie he's not, and I think he's not supposed to. I don't think he's really supposed to be in this movie. I think Vicky Vale is repulsed by him, and I mean, he's the only reason Jerry Hall's character is with him is because he's a rich, highfalutin criminal, and there's always going to be beautiful women. I don't think that I think he matches with Jack Palance in the, he's supposed to be an older guy who's just done really well in the criminal world, So yeah, no, I don't think he's supposed to be sexy in this movie, and I certainly never found him sexy, but I could imagine, 5 Easy Pieces, Easy Rider, those years. Yeah, I can imagine him. I can imagine some people finding him sexy back then. He's a quirky bad boy. I mean, he used to hang out with Warren Beatty and all this stuff. They were like the bad boys. Him and there was another person that was like sort of a trio of them. But yeah, he was. I mean, women. I think it is sort of the bad boy thing. But. And I would say that the end of that era would be like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And then, where he's beginning to age there a little bit. He's still very dynamic and an attractive character in his crazy boldness. But starting with The Shining, he's moving into a phase where I don't think sexy is part of his thing, really.
Well, our problem with him in The Shining, we love The Shining and we love Jack Nicholson. And we love him in the movie. But our problem that we always bring up, because we've mentioned the film a few times actually going through this.
Oh, yeah, totally, yeah.
Is that for that character, he's too creepy. Like, instantly, there's something weird about this guy, which seems to be kind of against what the story's telling us about him.
Yeah. Oh, very much so.
That's what... famously, Stephen King feels exactly the same way. He hated Jack Nicholson as that character. I think it works. I don't think there's enough room in the movie. It's the story is so compacted that I think that Kubrick decided to just start from almost the middle, where you already have Jack Torrance as a sort of disturbed guy, and so I think he just made that artistic decision to do it that way. Yeah, and we actually on my show when we did the talked about the interview scene at the beginning where he's interviewing in the office with Ullman. We referred to your show to Batman '89.
Yeah.
That it reflects. You can almost see the Joker. In his
100%.
eyebrows. Even though he's like in a job interview and trying to impress this guy, this boss, you can still see this kind of creepiness. So yeah, but anyway, by the way, there's several connections to The Shining between this movie and The Shining.
Oh.
Besides Jack Nicholson. Now, here's this is the least best connection, but the person we're talking about right now, Pat Hinkle, believe it or not, was in The Shining. Not the Kubrick Shining, but he was in the miniseries.
The other one.
Yeah, the Steven
horrible,
Weber one. Yeah.
horrible miniseries. But I think Pat Hinkle was the absolute best thing in that series. He's fantastic in it. He's the only good actor in the whole thing. He plays Watson, which is completely different. Then in the Kubrick movie, Watson barely exists. He's this blank character. In the novel by Stephen King, Watson is this full-bodied guy, and Pat Hinkle captures exactly what Stephen King put down to page. He's just dynamite. I mean, he's perfection. I love Pat Hinkle. I think he's a little underplayed in this movie too. I wish they had used him even a little bit more. Clearly a good actor. Another connection is. The guy who plays the father who was murdered, Batman's father, Wayne, yeah. Dr. Wayne. He plays a ranger in The Shining.
Yeah, David Baxter. I think we...
David Baxt, yeah.
Oh, it's Baxt. Oh, sorry.
Baxt. And yeah, so Wendy calls him and... he's like, "Don't worry, Mrs. Torrance. We're right here on the line for you. Just keep your radio open, and we'll be here in case anything bad happens." And completely useless, but yeah, that's one connection. And then the editor of this movie is Ray Lovejoy, and he was Ray Lovejoy had edited 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh. Yeah.
He edited The Shining, he edited Aliens, and he edited this. Those were his biggest movies. So anyway, just those are some of those are the only connections I could come up with.
I would argue, like I know we've said that the Joker's like eternal smile and the whole expression on his face here is like a nod to like things that happened in the comics. I can't help but get reminded though of the end of The Shining with Jack's body frozen with like a grimace. Like he ain't smiling in that scene. But when he's frozen solid, it kind of linger on his face for a moment. I can't help but feel like, because I imagine Tim Burton would have been a big Shining guy. Like it seems right up his alley.
Yeah.
I gotta imagine he internally was thinking like, oh, it's a bit like the end of The Shining when we're just doing like a kind of flip of that. Where this one he's eternally smiling, and that one he's a frozen grimace. I would imagine, internally, on some level, that might have been what they were aspiring to here as well.
Could be, yeah. I mean, they're both beautiful and death shots. They're both really nice death shots. And obviously, he's white here, and in The Shining, he's almost white because he's covered in snow, and he's pale, and he's frozen to death. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd never thought of that, yeah.
But yeah, I think the thing is, though, like, this is... monumental thing for us in the show in that this is the end of the Joker for me and John. The rest of the run, I guess we'll definitely be talking about the Joker as a character, as a concept throughout the whole thing because you can't get rid of the guy. But this is our last moments with Jack. Like that's the end of him.
Oh, rest in peace, man.
Yeah.
Although in the original '86 draft, the Joker was still alive for a few seconds.
No.
which is crazy. And he's looking up, and because he sees the helicopter exploding from the bomb that is in that draft, which is not in this draft. In this finished movie. And I particularly liked this one little tiny piece of the script, which it's very sad. I think it goes, "It's all so lovely. The Joker's expression is happy, almost childlike, as he gazes up at this private show. Gradually, though, the bright colours fade, and the Joker's face begins to relax, the twisted grin dissolving at last as darkness sets in.
Aw.
Yeah,
That's really sad.
Yeah.
that's Sam Hamm. He's got a way with words.
He really does. It's such a well-written draft that you can just read it like a book.
The thing is that because we'll be dealing obviously with several other Batman villains throughout our run, it still is like the Joker is definitely the most popular of the Batman villains, and there's eternal debate there. Is he the best Batman villain? And I would argue that and even on like an intellectual level that he is, because.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it's just the fact that, every Batman villain is just kind of like a form of a dark mirror to Batman himself, and that Two-Face is obviously like another person who was, a paragon of virtue and striving for justice, who went on the complete opposite direction after, tragedy befell him and things like that. But it's the idea that, Batman as a character himself is, the embodiment of the Jungian, shadow self. Like the shadow side of, he literally, he physically appears to be everything dark and frightening that we know. And that, he's everything about him is designed to be intimidating. He himself is lives in the shadows and is inherently supposed to be a scary, brooding, he looks like he's an evil character. If you saw him without context, you would think that's an evil person. But he's actually the most noble and the most righteous and the most, just character you can get. And the exact flip of that is the Joker, who appears friendly and happy and boisterous, and he's all bright colors and big smiles, and hey, isn't everything great? But he's the, agent of chaos and is entirely built upon, works of evil and making, other people suffer for his own amusement. So, and through that simple reason, he's the best villain you're going to get for Batman, because he is literally his exact, he is the yin to his yang, basically, so...
Yeah, they're made for each other. Like, the other villains are more just like, oh, here's a guy with a cool power.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. There's not really... I mean, there's a bit more to it than that, but nothing's as deep as the connection with the Joker.
Yeah, totally.
It's a genius concept. I mean, having an evil guy just giggling and cackling and laughing and that's what Jack Nicholson does very well in this movie too, is just his constant laughter. Maybe not quite as good as Cesar Romero, who was absolutely unbeatable, but very good with the constant laughing and maniacal laughing and just this sad character who was cursed with having a permanent smile and I think it's a great classic scene, obviously earlier in your movie when he first sees himself, when he after the accident, and he just is laughing and it's a genius concept. And it is very hard to beat that for its poetry. It's almost it's very poetic.
But yeah, also then this is the last we get to see of Saucy Jack Nicholson. Should be noted that
goodbye, Saucy Jack.
Yeah, we noted then that his next film after this was the much maligned sequel to Chinatown, the Two Jakes, which he also directed. So he came off before this. He did Ironweed with Meryl Streep, and then he went on to do the Two Jakes. And so I think this is the real highlight of that trio, personally.
I think most people wouldn't really argue with that, even not like comic book fans.
He never had a lot of success with his own the movies he directed himself. But I mean, look at the run up. I mean, Will Riches of Eastwick was stupid, but Broadcast News, I didn't even remember he was in that, but Broadcast News Ironweed was very critically acclaimed, and then later you have A Few Good Men, Hoffa. I mean, really, surrounded. This movie is still surrounded by amazing performances. Very critically acclaimed. He's I mean, I argue on my show. I've argued that he didn't start out as a very good actor. When he was really young and he was working with Roger Corman, I think he's really not. He was not a natural, but he was so smart. He just picked such good movies over his career. Such good directors. He worked with nothing but brilliant directors who probably taught him enormous amounts. About acting and just the experiences. Yeah. But I love his 70s era. I love The Passenger is actually my favorite Nicholson movie. And anyway, I just. But again, as far as Batman '89, I think Jack Nicholson is perfection in this movie. I mean, he just nails it. It's just perfect.
Hey. Well, sadly, as Niall said, that's the last we get of him, and we cut now to the last shot here. As I said at the start, it's a press conference outside City Hall, as always, and they announce that the reign of crime is over. So I guess Batman can just quit right now. Right? That's it. It's done. It's done. Good work, Bat.
Yeah. Although it also sounds like Gordon's he's kind of half-assing it because he's like, we've rounded up all the Joker's men. How do you know you got all the Joker's men? Did you get them in the van? And they're like, that's all of us. And it's like, there could be loads of them left. How do you know you got them all?
Joker kept meticulous logs.
Yes. Those guys in the helicopter, how did you get them? Did you have this non-existent police helicopter that didn't show up during that whole final sequence? Did that chase after them? How do you know that? I think it's another one of Gordon's just like, nope, that's us, and totally, everything's fine. We're fine here. Everything's fine now. How are you?
I don't even know how to follow up from that. You've just quoted Star Wars at me again. So, perfection. And now I need to go and watch it. God damn it. But,
what's that statue that you see during the press conference? You keep seeing these statues. Is there any information about like who these people are that they have?
Yeah, that is the statue of John T. Gotham that you do see throughout the movie at several different points. It was more of a thing in the various scripts that there was supposed to be a scene where there would be an unveiling of a new statue of John T. Gotham, and it was actually supposed to be a statue of the Joker that then showed up, and there's supposed to be a whole sequence there. And they built the statue. You can
love that.
You can get photos of the statue. Yeah, I think it was placed prominently in scenes, maybe with them thinking this is going to be a thing, because they were rewriting the movie as they went. And then it became like, we've made the statue, we might as well keep it in shots and stuff. So.
Is that why Tim Burton changed the statue in Planet of the Apes? Did he just have a thing for changing statues into something they're not supposed to be?
Oh, the fact that they had a character named John T. Gotham is hysterical. I mean, that's brilliant. That's so funny. That's such a great
I think
joke.
he was supposed to be like the founder of Gotham. I don't think it's like
that's what I mean. It's a fabulous
Yeah.
joke because it's like Gotham. I mean, it's kind of like Children's Hospital. That little series that was on Adult Swim. It's named after a guy named Children's. It's
Children.
I love those kind of jokes. I think that's hysterical.
I really wish my surname was Gotham now. That's a fantastic surname.
Hey, well, not too late, John. You can legally change it by all means. But yeah, in terms of notes for the actual content of the minutes, I think I'm out. Do you two guys, you have anything else you want to?
I think that's it.
No, that's it here. Except the only other thing they say: public safety in Gotham City is no, and it ends. It's no what? There is no public safety, damn it. So I want to know what he's going to say. There's been no protection of the people so far, so I'm excited for the next minute.
And this is a thing to lure our audience back in, because now a lot of people might be like, oh, well, the Joker's dead, so there's no point listening to the show anymore. You got to come back next week to find out exactly what the end of that line is. But yeah, so you kind of alluded to it a bit earlier, but we usually would ask like people like, do you have any memories of like the first time you saw this movie, or do you have any history with Batman as a character that you'd like want to delve into in any way?
I was not a superhero person. I ended up being a comic book person, but underground comics. Like I got into like college age. I got into Fantagraphics and Robert Crumb and all that stuff, and so Zap and all that stuff. But I was never a superhero person. But I remember, when this movie came out, it was such a big deal. Tim Burton was already really cool. You knew it was going to be a good movie, and there was just so much. The hype was incredible, and I definitely saw it in the theaters. I don't remember it, but I know I saw it, in the theaters with much anticipation and loved it. And of course I loved Prince, and all that stuff. So but I'm not a superhero person. I really don't go, didn't have that much interest. I've seen a few of the others, but that's not a thing for me. I was I was more of a Star Wars kid, and I like that kind of stuff a little bit more. So
you sound like me then, because I love this and I love Batman Returns. But as a whole, I'm not a big comic book reader. I'm more of a movie fan, first and foremost. So like the Marvel movies and things, like they don't excite me too much. I'll go and watch them, but I'm not like, oh my God, the new Avengers. is coming out.
Yeah, no.
That kind of
I
thing.
am one of the few people who will kind of defend Batman and Robin because I love Uma Thurman in that. And a lot of people
she's so
don't
good.
like her in that. I love her in that. I mean, I would have I married her. I'm straight and I would have like married her. You know, I just loved her in that. So, yeah. So, but I would go to them, you know, because they were always extravaganzas. And back then it was a lot more novel. You know, obviously when these first came out, it was more novel to have these really fun, colorful, crazy movies. And now it's like every other month you got something. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was genuinely stunned after walking out of Black Panther to find like, oh yeah, when's like the Avengers out? Is that like in like a year's time? It's like, no, it's in 2 months. Like what? In 2 months? Jesus Christ! Give us time to breathe.
Yeah.
Haven't they brought it forward now as well? Or are you including that in your 2 months? Because like I remember a couple of days ago, as of recording, they said they've brought it forward.
Oh yeah, I think actually what they've done is they brought it forward in America to the same release date as it has in the UK. I believe it's in an attempt to pirate or to prevent piracy and spoilers, basically, because on the internet you get Susan, you don't realize as an American how good you have it, and the fact that when you get movies over there, they're released ahead of time, ahead of they are over here, and so we've been hearing nothing but praise for Annihilation, and it's not out here until it can landed on Netflix next week. But at the moment, I could go and look up everything I ever want to know about Annihilation without actually watching the movie. So it's a bit of a screwed system. But I know it's that way for a reason in terms of like, well, you need to sell it, and people go on press tours and things like that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think it should be still working towards a system in which films are released simultaneously the world over, and just deal with it some way, because otherwise you are gonna get pirates, and you're gonna get spoilers.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah.
So, Susan, would you like to tell our good listeners where they can find you and your podcast before we head off into the dark, dark night?
Yes. Again, it's The Shining 237. I have a website, theshining237.com. I have a Patreon also for bonus episodes, and I'm on iTunes, I'm on Stitcher, and I'm on SoundCloud. Yeah. And it's a weekly thing, so check it out.
Yeah, make sure to check that out, because I'm sure you'll all love the movie and you'll love that podcast as well. So give it a look, and check out the Movies by Minutes website as well, if because I'm sure most of your favorite films are probably on there by now. What is there, 20,000 podcasts now? It's got to be something like that by the time this airs. So check that out and give us a message. We're on Twitter at Batminute89. And we have the Batminute 89 Listeners Society. If you want to chat to us, we clearly should have called it the Listeners Cave, but we can rectify that in future seasons.
I wanted to call it the Bat Minute Mine, but was shouted down at the press club. So
that would confuse everyone. Much like you want to call our fans Batminute Mites. I think about 2 people will understand the reference.
But Batman fans would know who Batman is. I stand by it. I'm going to chip away at that wall of diamond. And by the end of Batman and Robin, you're going to be calling people Batminute Mites. So.
I put it in the show notes sometimes. I spend a lot of time writing that crap in the show notes. But yes, join us again on Wednesday, because we will have minute 116. See you then.
Next time, a late Templar. Now the city has bid farewell to its most feared farcical fiend. The legend of the Bat begins to gather steam. But will a knight summoning light signal an end to Gotham's plight? Find out Wednesday. Same Bat Pod, different Bat Minute.